What do rising seniors need to do to prepare for the college application process? How can they fund their college education and learn more about financial aid? We'll address these questions and more coming up in this edition of The Chat Room. Welcome to The Chat Room. I'm your host, Frank O'Gara, and joining me today is Ms. Michelle Draughn from the Office of Federal Student Aid, U.S. Department of Education. Ms. Draughn has broad knowledge of the resources available from the Department of Education on applying to college, federal student aid programs, and the federal aid application process. She is co-project lead on the FAFSA completion project and other outreach activities for military families. Welcome back to the chat room, Michelle.
Thank you, Frank.
Well, it's great to have you. I know you've come in before to talk to military families about this very important topic of looking forward to college. And today we're going to talk specifically about our rising seniors, our current juniors in our schools who are going to graduate in a few weeks and who will be contemplating college at the end of their senior year. Mm-hmm. And we have in our school system, as you know, over 3,000 rising seniors. We have almost 50 high schools in our system. So it's a topic that is of great interest to our military families. And it's a rather scary topic when you think financially about applying to college and what it means. So we're pleased to have you here, and hopefully we'll get some information out to families today that will help them out.
Wonderful, thank you.
Let's begin with where students and parents who are thinking that they're college bound and going to start applying to college when they get back from summer break this coming summer, where do they start to get some information about this?
The parents and students would start with the College Navigator, which is a tool that we've developed that can allow the parent and student to search either by geographic state or by area of interest. And it provides a wealth of information for them to start that college search.
Okay, so if I'm a senior and I'm not really, I know I want to go to college, but I'm not really sure where I want to go. Maybe I have an idea of a major or a topic of study that I would like to pursue in college. Perhaps my family comes from a certain geographic region in the United States. How does this tool help me sort that out to figure out, what colleges are out there that may be of interest to me?
Well, the tool, let's say you wanted to stay in the New England states. So we'll select Vermont, and we'll go ahead and click on search, and it will pull up all the schools in Vermont. And then from there you can narrow it down. Those of us that went to college a while back remember the old college 4-year and 2-year books. They have been replaced by this electronic tool.
It's all virtual today.
It's all virtual. You can search anytime you want. You don't have to go to the library anymore to look at those resource books.
Now, what if I'm just looking at public universities as opposed to private? Do they have both in there?
They do. You can do a 2-year or a 4-year program, public or private education. So you can even compare, if I went to, let's say, a public school versus a private school, it'll provide you the breakdown of tuition under the tuition tab.
And this sounds like it's a great tool not only for, a senior or a rising senior who is trying to, come up with some choices, but ought to be a tool that the parents take a look at as well.
It is, because there's a huge change and difference in cost between being an in-state student and being an out-of-state student. So it may behoove the student to, after the first year of going there, to become an in-state resident.
And I know that topic has their interest because it's expensive, and I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. What about the timeline? When do I'm a rising senior? When do I need to think about this application process for colleges and universities?
You need to look at the different colleges and universities that you're going to attend, because they all have different deadlines, whether it's an early admissions deadline or a regular deadline. And I would suggest making a calendar that for each one of the institutions you're interested in, you have a calendar specific to that institution, and then set up reminders. A lot of the institutions may require an essay. So you don't want to go to your favorite history teacher or English teacher on a Tuesday and say, oh, I'd love for you to be a reference for me to write a recommendation, but I need it before 6th period on Thursday. Do you think you could do
Right.
that?
Yeah. We need to give them a little lead time.
Yes, you
Yeah.
do.
And I think the summer time provides a great opportunity for students to, who are rising seniors, to get this all together. To do, I mean, many of them have already been researching this for a couple of years now, but to build a timeline and be prepared to go when school starts in the fall.
That's right, and we have a publication called the College Preparation Checklist, and on page 16, it talks specifically about what the rising senior should be doing during the summer.
Oh, it gives them a calendar.
It gives them a calendar, and it also talks to the parents about what they need to be considering as well.
Super. Where can families get that publication?
You can get this publication at fsapubs.ed.gov, or you can go to studentaid.gov in the resource section and get an electronic copy of it as well.
Oh, great. Super. Now, I've heard you talk before about the college scorecard. Can you talk to me a little bit about what the scorecard is and why it's a great tool for families?
The scorecard is another way to do some college research. You can search based again on your degree or program area. You can also search on occupation. So if you know a particular occupation but you're not sure what college or university has that major, you can work backwards into it. We talked about wanting to stay in a particular state. You can search by state. You can also search by the size of the university. Some students, maybe for their first year, want to go to a smaller university just to get their feet wet before they go on to a larger university potentially.
Now, does this tool, in addition to pulling up some information that families can use to compare, does it also give links to the colleges so they can go there for their own virtual tour or for additional information?
It does give links. So it'll oftentimes it'll give you 3 different links. It'll give you the admissions office, the general college page, and then a page about deadlines.
How about the cost of college today? I mean, it's an issue that's heavy on the minds of a lot of families. And when you start to look at particularly the cost of private schools, a lot of families, I mean, the first reaction is to say, we can't afford this. We can't do that. Can you talk to me a little bit about the costs and how parents deal with that?
The costs at first look can be overwhelming. There's no doubting that. But there's money out there to help offset those costs, whether it's state funds from the state, whether it's institutional aid from the college or university, or federal student aid. There are ways to pay for that college education for either the parent, if they're going back to school themselves, or the student.
And so although it's a scary option, they shouldn't be discouraged from looking into it further.
No, they shouldn't be discouraged at all.
And the FAFSA is a great tool that helps to help states and the federal government and colleges decide what kind of aid a student might be eligible for.
That's correct. That's the first step in your financial aid process, is filling out the FAFSA.
Now, what about scholarships in addition to financial aid that may be available to students? How do your tools help students identify some scholarships?
On studentaid.gov, we have a scholarship search tool, and you can either search by area of interest or other factors such as maybe professional associations that you belong to or other criteria.
Okay, so maybe, for instance, maybe it could be a student's ethnicity or perhaps their religion or perhaps their parental, an occupation. A parent is a firefighter or is a police officer, where there are private organizations that offer scholarships to people based on the criteria they've set up that are often reflective of the organization or the private organization that they represent.
That's correct.
And you can find many of these through the tool here.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
You need to read through all of them. Just because you might get 6 pages, it doesn't mean that all 6 pages necessarily are going to apply. They may have specific criteria such as this scholarship is only to be used at a particular institution.
Okay. So you've got to do the research.
So you have to do the research. Just because you received 8 pages doesn't
And
necessarily mean that they're all
the
applicable.
tool is probably great. The tool is great. We know the tool is great. But I've also heard you say in the past that you recommend that students do some additional research as well when it comes to scholarships.
Correct. A lot of private organizations, a lot of companies have scholarships, but it takes a little bit of research to find that scholarship money that's there. It may actually possibly require a student to call a company up and ask if they have a scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of money out there that goes unused because of not doing research.
And students have to be aggressive about this.
They do,
Yeah.
because they are competing for those funds.
Now, so we I'm a senior. I'm going to apply for colleges. I've used the tool. I've sorted out the schools I'm interested in and want to apply for. I've started to look at the options for financial aid and scholarships. Okay, let's talk a little bit about funding that education now. How it actually is going to work when I get accepted to a college.
When you get accepted to a college, they're going to give you something called an award letter, and that will break out what kind of funds you're going to get, whether it's going to be grants, which are funds that you don't need to repay, scholarships, again, funds that you don't need to repay, work study, which is an opportunity for a student to either work on campus or in the community in an area. It does not have to be related to their major.
Oh.
So if someone is going to study, let's say, archaeology at a local school or something, they don't have to try and find a museum that's looking for an intern to be an archaeologist.
Sure.
To qualify for the work study, and then there's loans.
Now, are there tools on your website, because I know it's confusing. They get an award letter from a university, and there are so many options that are available to them, or offers that are made. Are there tools on your website that will help explain what all of these things mean and what the impact to them would be?
They can go to the financial aid shopping sheet, and what we suggest there is that they take each one of their award letters and pull out the data elements in the shopping sheet so they can clearly see, basically comparing apples to apples, if you will, what the award letter looks like, because the award letters are all going to be different.
Okay, now you had also mentioned a tool that will give a parent and a student a glimpse of a profile, per se, of a school, and give an idea to a student of what they might have to pay for financial aid, that they have money that they've borrowed or whatever after they graduate. Can you talk a little bit about that tool?
That would be the college scorecard again. And within the scorecard, you would click on that university, and it has information about items such as their graduation rate, their loan default rate, and then the medium of borrowing. And that gives, on an average, if a student has, for example, if a family typically borrows $23,000 of federal student loans for an undergraduate program, and this is based on the University of Vermont, and they're paying that loan over 10 years, their approximate amount due monthly is $264.68.
Wow.
So when that student's thinking about their borrowing, they need to take into account that after they do graduate, that loan note is going to become payable after 6 months.
I think that's a great tool, because when a student, if a student applies to, say, 5 schools, and then they get their acceptances and they get their award letters, and they're sitting down with their parents and they're trying to figure out which one is the best, often it may not just be the dollar amount on the bottom line for the students. Doing this kind of research to see what your prospects are once you graduate and what the average graduate from a particular school happens to be paying may influence your decision early on, before you even accept a school. Is that fair to say?
It's another tool to use and to consider.
Yeah.
And it can help make a decision of do I go to this school or do I go to that school?
I think it's a great tool. Yeah, I'm really glad that you guys have it. Now, we've talked about the student, mom, dad, or a sponsor of a child, and then all the great tools that the U.S. Department of Education offers. But there's also a couple of other important people that seniors really need to lean on. And who might they be?
They should lean on their school counselors. and ask for assistance with reviewing applications, if they have questions about, well, what does it mean to be an early admittance versus a regular admission. But they also want to form a relationship with the financial aid counselors or the financial aid admission officers.
To the schools that they're applying to.
To the schools that they're applying for, just to kind of get to know them, and if they have any questions about when they do get that award letter, they definitely want to reach out to those individuals.
That's
at the
a great
colleges.
tip, because I think many students and families get the letter, but they don't think if they need to, they can pick up the phone and call a financial aid officer and talk to them, which is a great tip. Okay. You guys have some wonderful tools. Is there a URL that we'll give folks a lot of URLs to go to here, but is there a URL in general that they ought to go to when they start this process to find resources that are going to be helpful to them?
I would say go to studentaid.gov. That has a wealth of information in there, and it's divided into steps. So the first step is preparing for college, which is where your rising seniors are right now. And then it goes all the way through to the student who has graduated from college and now is in the repayment status.
Great. And many of us are in that category as parents right now. Okay.
Yep.
Michelle, thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate your repeat visits. This is a topic that is of great importance to our families, and we can't share enough information with them about it.
Thanks so much, Frank.
You're welcome. Okay. You can find more information about our college admissions and financial aid at the URL noted on the screen. I'm Frank O'Gara. Thank you for joining us in this edition of The Chat Room.